Good afternoon, everybody. I will present a different approach to the theme of service design. I'm discussing, different perspective. I'm trying to present you the idea of a phenomenological change regarding design, the idea of changing that regards the design, production, and distribution system. So it has something to do with the production of service design, because we are talking about the idea of services regarding final user, but we must talk also about the idea of the service regarding the business-to-business perspective, the idea of production, the idea of making things, real things. So I would start, like the person before, with the idea of defining innovation using a design council definition. Design is a process that unites the idea of making things, managing things, design things, and the idea of joining together the idea of manufacturing something and the idea of experiencing, communicating, distributing something. So if we adopt this perspective, we are facing a great change, in my opinion, because there's an emerging role in design, that of a design entrepreneur, design startup, a person who acts in this changement. It could, certain way, reconfigure the design, production, distribution system model. So my discussion will be based upon some statement. I will discuss this with you. The first is, indices no longer exist as they used to. My idea is that there is a great scale change in the dimension of manufacturing. There is a shrinking idea of factories. EU research about manufacturing are talking about micro factories, atelier workshop in which you can produce something, mixing the old traditional industrial culture with the craftsmanship culture. This is based upon the idea that you can connect different ability. For example, the idea in Italy is very traditional capability of craftsmanship with the organization, the possibility, the massive use of technology of the interdependent production in production chain used in industry. This is possible thanks to the massive use of information communication technology. This enables the idea of making peer-to-peer network that could act together on an economy of scope instead of an economy of scale. So this shrinking of production system could lead to a new form of production that could need new services. The second statement, manufacturing doesn't exist as it used to, because this idea of changing from an economy of scale to an economy of scope is so contemporary. We have the idea that everything must be produced in a delocalized context, for example, in China or in India. But if you are facing the situation in Europe, the main problem is work for the people. The idea of reconfiguring the production distribution system in a way which you can produce work instead of products. And this is possible only if we relocalize production. We put the production system near to us. This is a new scenario that is called distributed production. And in my opinion, is the new ways in which we rethink the idea of experience between the usual division between the idea of making things and distributing, the idea of a factory and of a shop. The third condition is markets no longer exist like they used to. Anderson speaks about long-tail markets, the idea of we don't need mass production of things, we need production of small lots of things. If you take a look, for example, at the idea of the furniture system, it's, it's not true that you are going to produce millions of chairs. You produce 1 chair, 10 chairs, 100 chairs, 1,000 chairs. So the market also for the most important brand is a small market, small market. So in this scenario, it is possible to produce small lots of things and sell them in a different way. 4th condition, products and services do not all exist as they used to. There is an idea that there is a change in the object of design, the idea of making something that could be at the same time tangible and intangible. The idea that objects could be or could have strong material structure, but both material structure and the intangible dimension could be connected by interaction. So, for example, the idea of making solution, it's the idea of making something more complex than the real physical things. And this more complex object could be connected in a service perspective, an experience perspective, and the idea of this could reach the idea of Internet of Things, in which you can mix the level. This also helps the idea of make an intelligent distribution of information along the production and distribution chain. So you can rule upon the idea of making a kind of bioregions in terms of mixings, production of materials, the real production system, and the distribution system. If you face this perspective, the idea of demiurgic creativity is not sufficient. You must work in a different way. There is an idea that if you can act on the design side, you can work on the idea of distributing also the virtual model of the things you do. For example, you can act together in a crowdsourced mode, in a peer-to-peer mode, designing in a collective way the same things. This could focus on an important aspect of this changement, that is the idea of collaboration, of making together, design, making together. There's a lot of discussion about the idea of participation, of participatory design at every scale, from the big scale, the idea of city planning, from the idea of making single artifacts. So this could originate different and new communities of practice that are not made only of designers, but made with mixed people, coming also from an amatorial side. So, in my opinion, the idea that designers were the people who design things is not sufficient nowadays. And like Andrea Branzi said, if this could be a mass perfection, we must face a changement that is the idea that designers could become temporarily entrepreneurs, could be self-productors of things. There is an emerging movement in Italy of autoproduttori, self-productor. There is a new initiative sponsored by the Comune di Milano, Milano Municipality, by Triennale, of Milano si autoproduce design. It's a movement, a connection network in which people who design and distribute something could join and have a kind of common interface for fairs, for activity, for presentation. So it's a real thing that is happening. The most interesting events will have this perspective in the next Fuori Salone of Milan, because this is a new wave of facing this changement in this aspect of mass profession changement. This perspective was theorized by Ezio Manzini, Italian theorist, who speaks about this SLOC scenario, small, local, open, connected communities of designers, producers, and distributors. It speaks about distributed system in which you putting together distributed intelligence, a distributed production infrastructure, and a distributed manufacturing model could redesign our idea of consumption, not only of production. So the end of my provocation is that if we think about distributed service design production, we can imagine a local service design opportunity that could be implemented. For example, if we take some example of what's going on in the best institution in the world, from Prenzela to Victoria and Albert Museum, to the idea, another great exhibition in Victoria and Albert Museum. There is the idea of new idea of making with the idea of developing services. Another important exhibition nowadays in Aram Gallery. The idea of advanced manufacturing, advanced service production. So a new figure is emerging, the idea of maker, of making something. It seems a contradiction between the idea of intangible, but it's not, in my opinion, a contradiction. There's a lot of examples, starting from the idea always made by Chris Anderson of the idea of produce this distributed model could produce a new economy, There's a forecast made by these two persons who worked for Obama administration that set up this report, Factory at Home, the idea of personal fabrication, the idea of you can produce in your home something. The idea of microfactories, of shrinking of technologies. The MakerBot, a success case, international success case. Starting from on a material side, these 2 or 3 guys in New York set up an industry. They produce 3D printer. The average cost of these printers is $500, $600. So you can buy one of these and you can transfer directly from your idea, your visual model, to a 3D printing. Very interesting. RedWrap, an international organization who teach you how to build your 3D printer. An international community made of people who are thinking about fabricating themselves what they need. Make, the most successful new review in the United States. It's about the idea of making, rediscovering making directly, something. Maker Factory, it's a maker facility. They offer you to fabricate something for you. You can be a craftsman, you can be an industry, you join this network, you can access this network, you can produce everything everywhere. Maker Fair, the most important event in design, in my opinion, in design. New technologies, the idea, Tinkercad. AutoCAD has distributed this open source and free software, and you can use it to do reverse modeling, to build virtual model. It's free, for free. Tinkercad on the web, the same thing. One of the most successful cases in the world, Arduino. An electronic microcontroller made by this Italian guy, Massimo Banzi, who worked in Interaction Institute in Ivrea. He was the prototypist in the lab of Ivrea. He, for helping interaction design students to program interactive devices, build this circuit, then he produced this circuit, making an enterprise, a community. It was one of the greatest success in last year. The other scenario is that of the prosumer, the idea of connecting producer and consumer, the idea of the final user could do something by yourself. The idea of that do-it-yourself culture. There's a great history in this. There are Jane Fulton Surrey from IDEO, that the first design creating for the people, then with the people, and at the last, people created by themselves something. There's an emerging culture of hacker spaces. The idea that you can join other people in designing something. There is the idea that beside the fab labs, the idea of fabrication laboratory is emerging an idea of tech shop in which you, like in a club, you could become a member, you could access this facility and do something for you. A network of this, the idea of garage culture exploited. A network. Etsy, a marketplace in which you can sell your products. It's an emerging economy. There's a lot of examples. This is, in my opinion, we must reflect upon this. There's something going on, commoditization of service, but there's a new scenario that is emerging with a strong economical, social, and design impact. Thank you.